Thank you for coming to MTG Anonymous, your daily source for random free-to-play decks on MTG Arena. I would appreciate it if you would like, comment, and subscribe whenever you get the chance. Also, feel free to watch any other content that I've produced. I'll see you in the video. Alrighty, welcome to MTG Anonymous. Today we are doing Syr Konrad Brawl, and I know what you're going to say. There is no Rankle in this deck, and I don't have him, so that is definitely a problem. But before we get into this, I'm going to go ahead and say now, please like, comment, and subscribe. That will help me out greatly. Also, thank you so much to the last two people that let me know that you couldn't hear me in the last video. I had some issues with my mic where the headset mic wanted to go off instead of my blue ice mic. But now we finally got this going. Blue snowball ice. Alright. But now we finally got this going. So, first off, we do what we always do. Average CMC for this deck is 2.6. There's 17 creatures, 3 instants, 5 sorceries, 5 artifacts, 1 enchantment, 4 planeswalkers, and 24 lands, all swamps. Of course, Witch's Cottage is a swamp, but we'll go over that later. First off, Syr Konrad for 3 black and a black. You get a legendary human knight whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield or a creature card leaves your graveyard. Syr Konrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then for 1 and a black, each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. So, what are we going to do with this deck? Well, obviously, we're going to get a whole bunch of little creatures out, 1, 2, 3 drops, and then we're going to sacrifice them, probably to the Witch's Oven, or just to dies to combat, whatever, dies to removal. And then we deal 1 damage to each opponent. And then we'll use random things to get cards out of our graveyard, put them back into play, like Gravewalker. And then, boom, there we go. Also, we have Bolas's Citadel, because when we sacrifice 10 non-land permanents, hopefully they're creatures, then, boom, Syr Konrad deals 10 damage, and then we also deal 10 damage with Bolas's Citadel. But let's go ahead and start the rest of this deck tech. So first off, we have Banehound for 1 black. You get a lifelink Haste Nightmare Hound. It's a 1/1. So why is that in here? Drop it turn 1, start dealing a little chip damage. This is just in here to stall for Syr Konrad. Again, most of the 1 drops except for the Cauldron Familiar are just for stall. Barrier of Bones, 1 black. You get a 0/3 Skeleton Wall with Defender. When it enters the battlefield, Surveil 1. So what I like about Surveil is if we have Syr Konrad out, play Barrier of the Bones, if a creature's on top, we can put it in our graveyard. Preferably, again, that creature is Cauldron Familiar, but if it's not, then really it doesn't matter, because all we care about is getting things into our graveyard at that point. Cauldron Familiar, for 1 black, you get a 1/1 cat. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Sacrifice a food. Return Cauldron Familiar from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, obviously, combo Cauldron Familiar, Witch's Oven. You have Cauldron Familiar out, block creature, or it gets blocked when you attack. Sacrifice it to the Witch's Oven, and then whenever you feel like it, bring it back by sacrificing the food that the Witch's Oven made. Syr Konrad will not only trigger when Cauldron Familiar goes into the graveyard, but also when it comes back out to go on the battlefield. So, every time you do this combo, you deal 3 damage and you gain 1 life. So, Felmir Knight for 1 black, and then the instant part, 2 and a black, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. The Felmir Knight only has a Death Touch. Death Touch says, any amount of damage a source with Death Touch deals to a creature is enough to destroy it. So, again, we have this in here to destroy our opponent's creatures, or, just get chip damage in because they're not going to block. If anything blocks this, it dies, basically. So, we're going to deal at least 1. If we run into not a lifelinker, but if we run into a wall, then the wall will die, and Felmir Knight won't. But if we run into anything else, they will both die. We'll do 2 damage. Knight of Ebon Legion. For 1 black, you get a 1/2 Vampire Knight. For 2 and a black, it gets +3/+3 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. At the beginning of your end step, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Knight of Ebon Legion. So, it's real easy to deal 4 damage in this deck. 2 creatures die with Syr Konrad during the swing, and then we got random ways to deal extra damage in this deck. So, this is good. This is going to get really big, and then someone's going to try to take it out, or they'll chump block it every turn, and that'll deal an additional damage each turn. So, this is going to get big, and it's really important to get this out as early as possible. Then once Syr Konrad comes out, then you're going to start taking advantage of the Death Touch. But also, if you have creatures on your opponent's side that can't do anything about this, then you're just going to keep making it big, swinging. Vampire of the Dire Moon. For 1 black, you get a 1/1 Vampire with Death Touch and Lifelink. That's it. Another Death Toucher. We like this because it deals 1 damage. We gain 1 life when it deals damage, so that's also nice. So we would never sacrifice this to Witch's Oven. It deals 1 damage when it attacks, so Death Touch triggers, and we get a life. So this is actually really important to this deck too. Bone Splinters. For 1 black, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, destroy target creature. We don't care about sacrificing creatures, and we also want our opponent's creatures to go in their graveyard, so this is a win-win on both sides. Disfigure. For 1 black, target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. We can use this on our creatures, or we can use this on our opponent's creatures. It really doesn't matter as long as things die. If we use this early enough, though, this is pretty important. Kai's Ghost Form. For 1 black, enchant creature or planeswalker you control. When enchanted permanent dies or is put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. This is to go on Syr Konrad, or also on the cat, so that way you can make more food tokens, but regardless. Have this on Syr Konrad, something kills him, he dies, which he doesn't see himself die, so that's not okay. But once he comes back on the battlefield under our control, boom, we can start doing things again, and then he ate 1 piece of removal. Price of Betrayal. For 1 black, remove 5 counters from target artifact, creature, planeswalker, or opponent. So, if we have any Okos who try to make all of our artifacts into the Elk Overlords, we're going to use this, take away 5 counters from it. Boom, that's 1 useless. Spark Harvest. For 1 black, is an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature or pay 3 and a black. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Again, we have an Oko come out, boom, throw something at it. We sacrificed a creature, so Syr Konrad gets the trigger. Win-win. Witch's Oven. For 1, you get an artifact, tap, sacrifice a creature, create a food token. If sacrificed creature's toughness was 4 or greater, create 2 food tokens instead. You know why this is in here, so we have no reason to even talk about this anymore. Burglar Rats. 1 in the black. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. It's just to get some card removal going. Other than that, I really don't care about it, but we like it since it's a 1/1. It comes in, it does something, and then we can sacrifice it. So, Eternal Taskmaster. For 1 in the black, you get a 2/3 zombie. Enters the battlefield tapped. When it attacks, pay 2 in a black. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So we can use this if the cat Cauldron Familiar dies somehow, we can grab it. Or play it late enough and you can just use it, grab something, play it again, and then sacrifice it immediately that same turn. This is also great for the Gravewalker if that dies, seeing as that's our biggest way to bring things back. So, this is important to the deck too. Piper of the Swarm. 1 in a black. Rats you control have Menace. For 1 in a black, tap, create a 1/1 black rat creature token. And then for 2, a black and a black, sacrifice 3 rats, gain control of target creature. We really like that bottom ability, but it also takes us 4 turns to get that going. You can take off 1 turn if you get the Burglar Rat out, but we will trigger Syr Konrad 3 times, and we will steal something, but that just takes a little too long, and it's a little too mana intense. If you don't have anything going on, then that makes sense, and I would do this every turn on our opponent's turn if we have extra mana, but I don't know. I do like it here, though, just because we can make tokens to block, but I don't like that bottom ability. Not right here, anyway. Priest Forgotten Gods. 1 in a black. For 1, you get a 1/2 human cleric. Tap, sacrifice 2 other creatures, any number of target players, each lose 2 life, and sacrifice a creature. You add 2 black and draw a card. This card is amazing. We don't pay anything for this ability, so after it's been on the battlefield for a turn, we can start sacrificing 2 creatures. And then any number of target creatures players lose 2 life, and we sacrifice a creature. So we're gonna trigger this 3 times, and we're gonna add 2 black and draw a card. 2 black can help us cast something really small, or we might draw something big. By the time we've played this, we've already have 2 mana, so that's 4, and then we can now jump over here on turn 3, hypothetically. So, I like it. Epic Downfall, 1 of the black sorcery, exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or greater. This is just to get things out of the way, since we have lots of small creatures that we really don't care if they die, but we can't take the hits back, so we're going to exile stuff. Preferably our opponent commander, so that way it takes them a lot longer to stabilize instead of them being able to swing at us every turn. So, forever young, I want to be forever young. For 1 of the black sorcery, put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library, draw a card. So not only do we get to pick the order of the creature cards that go in, which we're going to pick every single creature card in our graveyard for this. And then Syr Konrad's going to trigger for every single one of them, so we can just do some chip damage pretty early, draw a card, play one of those creatures that we got back. Soaring Thirst, a black and a black, deals 2 damage to target creature and you gain 2 life. So, can we kill something for 2? Yes, we probably can. Deal 2 damage to it, gain 2 life. Something dies, triggers Syr Konrad, deal 1 damage. Midnight Rider, 2 and a black. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Midnight Reaper deals 1 damage to you, and you draw a card. It's a 2 and a black for a 3/2 zombie knight. So, this card can kill you, and I've seen it happen because I've done it. If you do the Cauldron Familiar combo way too many times, your life total gets just a little bit low. Now, you gain 1 life from the Cauldron Familiar entering, but when it dies, you also lose a life, so you're not gaining any life while that's happening. And then your opponent swings at you every turn. It's really hectic, but it does get us way ahead on cards. So I will always use that combo regardless, because we get an extra card for basically nothing. But it also affects us when our opponent starts swinging back, because you cannot block with the Midnight Reaper. Plague Crafter, 2 and a black, 3/2 Human Shaman. When enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Each player who can't discards a card. So, since there's no multiplayer pod, this doesn't really matter, but we'll get to trigger 2 creatures dying, and then we might replace one of those creatures with a 3/2. So, Rotting Regisaur, 2 and a black. Zombie Dinosaur, 7/6. At the beginning of your upkeep, discard a card. So why is that important? It says, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield. So, we discard a creature card, we deal 1 damage to our opponent. Yeah. And then we can also use different tricks like Eternal Taskmaster. So every turn, now we have another creature card that we can discard to the Rotting Regisaur. Yeah. Murderous Rider, 1 a black and a black. It's instant. Part of the adventure is 1 a black and a black. Destroy target creature planeswalker. You lose 2 life. Again, Oko is the bane of our existence, which it really isn't, since it gives us Elks, which are creatures. We can just swing. And then when they die, boom, deal, get a trigger. So, and then Murderous Rider has a lifelink. When it dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. So we don't get the trigger from Syr Konrad, since it just goes straight to our library and not to our graveyard. It's a 2/3 zombie knight. Davriel Rogue Shadow Mage. I might be saying that wrong, so please correct me. For 2 and a black, you get a 3 loyalty Davriel Planeswalker. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, deals 2 damage to them, and then -1 target player discards a card. That's just in here to be annoying. People see Planeswalkers and they're just like, ooh, I'm going to swing at it, so that's why that's here. We don't really care if they kill it. We just want it here, so it'll soak up 3 damage. Gives us a little more time. Murder, 1 a black and a black, instant, destroy target creature. We're going to use this against most of the time our opponent's commander, unless their commander's a planeswalker, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to destroy creatures, and then we get to swing in with Syr Konrad, since there's probably not a blocker, or we just get to trigger Syr Konrad altogether. Heraldic Banner 3. As it enters the battlefield, choose a color, which will be black. Creatures you control of the chosen color get +1/+0, and add 1 mana of the chosen color. So that's in here for the +1/+0. Deal a little bit of extra damage. Our lifelink creatures give us 1 extra life. So, Mana Geode for 3. When it enters the battlefield, scry 1, tap, add 1 mana of any color. That's really it. It's just here for the extra mana. Spawn of Mayhem, 2 a black and a black. You get a 4/4 demon. And then Spectacle, 1 a black and a black. Let's go over Spectacle quick. You may cast a spell for a Spectacle cost other than its mana cost if an opponent lost life this turn. More than likely, an opponent is losing life this turn, so we'll save 1 mana. Has Flying and Trample. Beginning of your upkeep, Spawn of Mayhem deals 1 damage to each player. Then if you have 10 or less life, put a +1/+1 counter on Spawn of Mayhem. So a good way to deal with this card is drop yourself down to about 10 somehow, and then barely gain 1 life, get to 11, it deals its damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and since it doesn't have lifelink, this helps you out quite a bit. Karn the Great Creator for 4, activated abilities of artifacts your opponent's control can't be activated. It's a 5 loyalty, Karn Planeswalker. +1 until your next turn, up to 1 target creature non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost. And for -2, you may choose an artifact you own outside of the game, or in exile, reveal that card and put it into your hand. So I'm not using it for the -2. I can, but I'm not going to. I just want the +1. Again, people are going to swing a card every single turn that they have, and then we also have things like Heraldic Banner, God Pharaoh statue. So these 2 are going to let us deal some extra damage as we go. That's really it. Cavalier of Night, 2 a black, and a black. Lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target creature an opponent controls. When it dies, return target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you see why we have all these 3 drops? That's so when Cavalier of Night dies, which it will die in this deck, we're going to get something back. Now, preferably Eternal Taskmaster, maybe, so that way when we attack with it the next turn, then we can grab Cavalier of Night back out into our hand and play it again, sacrifice the Eternal Taskmaster, destroy opponent's creature, let it die, maybe the Witch's Oven on our opponent's end step, get the Eternal Taskmaster back, and we'll just keep that loop going, because we'll deal 3 damage each time, since Cavalier of Night destroys a creature, and then Plague Crafter comes back out. So, that's 4 damage. Obnixilis, the Hate Twisted, 3 a black and a black. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Obnixilis deals 1 damage to that player, and then -2, destroy target creature. Its controller draws 2 cards. So we're going to use this to destroy our creatures, actually, not our opponents. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but we want to draw the 2 cards. Yeah, like we care if our opponent draws cards, and that helps us since they won't be getting advantage. But we will be able to draw 2 more cards, so we will be able to play more things. And then also, Syr Konrad triggers off this as well, since we destroy a creature. Now, preferably, it's one of our 1-drops that gets destroyed, but if it's not, it could be also a 2-drop, whatever. Maybe a token. It matters. Gravewaker, 4 a black and a black. You get a 5/5 bird spirit with flying. And then for 5 a black and a black, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So, what I like about this is you can trigger Priest of the Forgotten Gods, so sacrificing 2 creatures. Whatever those 2 creatures are you sacrifice, now you have 2 extra mana. So this says 5 a black and a black. So now you just have to 5 mana, but you played this for 6. So you definitely have 5 extra mana. So now you can grab whatever one of those things that you sacrificed, put it back on the battlefield tapped. You can also do this on your opponent's turn, so you can sacrifice whatever it is at the end of your opponent's end step and then grab something back. On your turn, grab the other thing back. It's up to you, honestly. Bolas' Citadel, 3 a black and a 3 a black, and a black. Legendary Artifact. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. Tap, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. So with all the chip damage we're getting from Syr Konrad, from the Cauldron Familiar, from the Spawn of Mayhem, we're going to be able to bring our opponents down to 10 life pretty quick. So if we have 10 non-land permanents, why not? Just go ahead, tap it, destroy everything. Or hurt our opponents real bad. God Pharaoh statues for 6. Legendary Artifact spells your opponent cast cost 2 more to cast. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 1 life. Again, we like chip damage here. It causes our opponent, instead of being able to play 4 2-drops, they're only able to play 2 2-drops. So, early, if we can play this as turn 6. So, it really, really is important for the chip damage, obviously. Also, Karn, the Great Creator, can turn it into a creature. So, it would be a 6/6, but regardless. Ugin, the Ineffable. You can't F with me. 6. Legendary Ugin. Colorless spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. So we only got 4 more of those. So that doesn't really... Well, 5. 5 more. That really doesn't matter. +1, exile top card of your library face down. Look at it. Create a 2/2 colorless spirit creature token. When the token leaves the battlefield, put the exiled card into your hand. And then -3, destroy target permanent. That's 1 or more colors. Oko. Oko is 1 or more colors. -3, destroy it. Okay, so keep getting it out late. We can do that. For the +1, we get the creatures, the colorless spirit creature. If it's something really good, we'll sacrifice it to the Witch's Oven. If it's something moderately good, then we'll just swing every turn. It dies. Regardless, when it does die, deal 1 damage to each opponent. So yeah. And then last but not least, we have 23 swamps, and then Witch's Cottage. Witch's Cottage says, enters the battlefield unless you control 3 or more other swamps. Almost impossible to not do that at this point. When Witch's Cottage enters the battlefield untapped, you may put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. Then tap, add a black. So there's only 2 things I got to show you here, but I don't own either. So let's go ahead and do that. Legend. Arya, First of Lochthwain. I don't know how to say that. For 3 black. You get a 2/3 Elf Noble. When it or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life, and then tap, sacrifice another black creature, draw a card. So if we put this in here, we can get rid of the Rotting Regisaur, since we can sacrifice a black creature and draw a card, while the Rotting Regisaur is just making us discard a card. But what's great about this is as creatures enter, our opponents lose a life, we gain a life. So we're going to be having things pop in and out all the time. And then also, it'll be involving our commander, seeing as things die from her sacrifice ability, then we deal 1 damage. So that's important for this deck, but I don't have any wild card for that right now. Sorin's good too. +1, creature you control gain death, touch, and lifelink, which is really important if it's a vampire, which they're only like 2 or 3. In turn, it is a vampire. Put a +1/+1 counter on it, doesn't matter. For +1, you may sacrifice a vampire. When you do, deals 3 damage. We don't care about that. -3, you may put a vampire card from your hand onto the battlefield. So, we don't really have many, but we get just really like the death touch and lifelink. That's what I like about this card. And it's only a 3-drop, so again, really cheap. We could probably take out Ugin or Karn to replace it with this. Price Fame is okay. We don't really need any more removal, so. Rankle for 2 a black and a black. Flying Haste, Fairy Rogue. When Rankle deals combat damage to a player, choose any number. Each player discards a card. Each player loses 1 life and draws a card. Each player sacrifices a creature. So we're going to do all 3 every time. Hopefully our opponents start discarding creatures, because it affects them too when creatures go into their graveyard. Then they get to draw a card, hopefully another creature, and then they sacrifice a creature. So that's 2 triggers off Syr Konrad, so 3 damage, and then they lose 1 life to draw the card, so that's more damage. God Eternal Bantu could be here too, since you could sacrifice any number of permanents, draw that many cards, and at the end of your turn, if you have too many, you would just put them all into the graveyard. So that's it. Massacre Girl's good here too, but again, don't have it. Not important. Liliana could replace Ugin too, but again, don't have it. I'm out of wild cards. It's really bad, but once we start getting more wild cards, then we'll do some upgrades to this deck, and we will make a video on it. But that's all I have for today. There's not going to be any music on the video. I didn't mention that, and I completely forgot. But there's no music on this video. Hopefully you can hear me way better this time. Please let me know in the comments if you can't. But I really enjoyed this deck. There's probably going to be a gameplay on it, seeing as it ain't lost a game yet. But, I keep saying but. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. That'll be in the next scene. That's it. Later.